A massive project was once unveiled that saw participation from more than 150 nations around the globe. Promises were made of building new airports, seaports, and motorways. Hopes were raised of creating future versions of Dubai and Singapore. Yet today, across many of those very countries, what we see are unfinished ventures or collapsed dreams. Some states are drowning in debt, while others are left facing ruins. This was none other than China's largest global mega project, the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Once hailed as the project of the century, it is now labeled by many as a geopolitical disaster, especially for the poorer nations who bought into China's grand vision. The launch of BRI. Back in 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping announced the BRI with the ambition of reviving a new Silk Road that would connect Asia, Africa, and Europe through ports, railways, and highways. The stated mission was to place struggling economies on the road to progress while positioning China as a global leader. Over 140 nations showed interest, and many poorer countries immediately began borrowing from China. Around $1.2 trillion was poured into BRI, but much of it came in the form of loans that Western banks and the IMF had already considered too risky to issue. Hidden agenda, the BRI was never merely about infrastructure. It was also a tool of geopolitical and economic strategy. China faced an oversupply of industrial capacity and had millions of fresh engineering graduates every year who could not easily find work at home. By pushing these resources abroad through BRI projects, China both supported its own workforce and extended its global influence. The darker side, however, emerged as debt trap diplomacy. Poor nations were handed loans so large they could never realistically repay them, forcing them to cede critical infrastructure or land to China. Case studies of failure. Sri Lanka Hambantota Port, tempted by China. Sri Lanka agreed to build a deep-sea port, despite already having Colombo Port, costing over $1.3 billion and constructed by Chinese firms on Chinese loans. The port had little actual demand, just 30 to 40 ships used it annually. Unable to pay back the debt, Sri Lanka in 2017 leased Hambantota Port to a Chinese company for 99 years, effectively giving away part of its sovereignty. Zambia. Reliant on copper, Zambia borrowed heavily from China in hopes of modernization. By 2020, 43% of its external debt was owed to Beijing. When COVID-19 crashed trade and reduced copper demand, Zambia defaulted. Montenegro Highway Project. In 2014, this small European country took $1 billion in Chinese loans for a highway. Poor planning drained the funds after building only 41 kilometers of road that connects to nothing. The result? Debt levels soared, pushing the debt-to-GDP ratio past 80%. Sri Lanka's Matala Rajapaksa International Airport. Constructed with $200 million in Chinese loans, the airport attracted neither airlines nor passengers. Nicknamed the world's emptiest airport, it is now more familiar to elephants than aircraft. Ecuador Coca-Cola Sinclair Dam. With $2.6 billion in Chinese financing, the dam suffered from shoddy construction and corruption. Today, it holds more than 17,000 cracks, threatening not only economic fallout, but also human and environmental catastrophe. Pakistan CPEC China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. The $60 billion project was expected to bring jobs, energy, and growth. But delays and failures dominated. In Gwadar, locals protested shortages of water, electricity, and broken promises of employment. China now controls Gwadar Port, keeping 91% of its revenue, leaving Pakistan with a mere 9%. Italy, the only G7 member to join BRI. Signing news with China, Italy expected trade and investment inflows. When projects never materialized and benefits proved minimal, Italy called B a big mistake and eventually withdrew. Meanwhile, other nations such as Malaysia, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and Nepal canceled or renegotiated their projects under BRI actions. The shortcomings of BRI spurred the West into action. The US and its allies launched counter-initiatives like PGII, Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, by the G7, Global Gateway by the EU. These offer transparent funding and low-interest loans, aiming to prevent countries from falling into debt traps. At the same time, Russia, isolated after its war in Ukraine, moved closer to China, creating a new geopolitical axis. Despite investing trillions, China didn't fully achieve what it wanted. Instead of gaining global respect, BRI gave China the negative label of debt trap diplomacy. Many of its own loans are at risk, and maintaining seized projects has become a liability. Its economy is also slowed. However, China did manage to secure stakes in over 100 ports worldwide, strengthening its export economy. If BRI's network is ever completed, it could connect Asia to Europe across land and sea routes, covering 65% of the world's population. Current status: China is now rebranding BRI as BRI 2.0, focusing on digital infrastructure, green energy, and sustainable projects. But the world is no longer willing to trust promises alone. Countries demand real economic benefit, not just mounting debt. I hope you will also give lots of likes and shares to this video of Amir TV and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video. Until then, take great care of yourself and your family.